Good morning. Welcome to worship in the Unitarian Universalist Church of Charlotte. As the summer draws to a close, we come together this morning to reflect. We have opened our hearts and minds and become willing to learn and grow together. We consider what it means to bring our empty cups, sometimes starting over, as we move together toward courageous connections.
Every beginning must start with a first step. Although we will inevitably encounter darkness and difficulty along the way, we will also know that we will see the dawning of fresh light, the beginning of hope, and the renewal of life and spirit. We light this chalice today in honor of the fire within and to inspire us to send our unique and individual lights out into the world.
Welcome to today's service. We are honored to have guests with us. Our members would like to greet you following the service. So that we might do so, if you are visiting, please raise your hand and keep it up. Members, please take note of guests seated near you. After the service, invite them to join you for coffee and conversation in Freeman Hall. Should it enhance your experience of future services, you can find both a large print order of service and a personal hearing assistance device on the table at the entrance to the sanctuary. If you'd like to learn more about us, please fill out a yellow card and place your completed card in an offering basket when they are passed later in the service. Members with a life event to share can do so on the reverse side of the card. You'll find them along with offering envelopes on the clipboards at the end of the row. Please begin passing them down your row now. Some returning visitors may be interested in hearing about how to become a member. If so, talk with our membership coordinator, Kelly Green. Her contact information is on the back of your order. Again, to each of you, welcome.
My reading today is called It Couldn't Be Done by Edgar Guest. Somebody said that it couldn't be done, but he with a chuckle replied that maybe it couldn't, but he would be one who wouldn't say so till he'd tried. So he buckled right in with the trace of a grin on his face. If he worried, he hid it. He started to sing as he tackled the thing that couldn't be done, and he did it. There are thousands to tell you that it cannot be done. There are thousands who will prophesy failure. There are thousands to point out to you, one by one, the dangers that wait to assail you. But just buckle in with a bit of a grin. Just take off your coat and go to it. Just start to sing as you tackle the thing that cannot be done, and you'll do it. Good morning. Good morning. My name is Kaarin, and I've been a member here for several years. If you don't recognize my face, you may recognize this side of me, because I'm usually hiding behind the piano over there. This is not my comfort zone. When John asked me to be a part of the service today, I thought to myself, the last thing I want to do is write another paper after what I've been doing for the past 2 years. But this was easy and a complete joy. So I hope you find some use for my words today. Since 1992, I've spent 2+ decades as a public school music educator, choral conductor, church music minister, and piano instructor. I've always loved the different facets of my career, but doing anything for so long can make you weary. In the summer of 2014, with my only child getting ready to leave for college, the reality of how quickly life was passing by hit me, and I realized that I had entered into the stereotypical midlife crisis. During that summer of 2014, as I've been known to do, I took off on a solo 45th birthday trip. I'll let you do the math. To spend July on the coast of Maine, trying to reorganize my thoughts and gain some perspective on the impending second half of my life, along with trying to reckon with what was becoming an ever more painful lower spine condition. On an impromptu boat trip, I took a series of photos. Not that one, well, I did take that one, but there was a whale up there. Was there a whale up there previously? The breaching whale was a photo of mine, and the image of that giant, joyful animal leaping into the wide blue sky would become an inspiration to me as I navigated through the next few years. The following year, the cause of my spinal condition was finally diagnosed as a bizarre thing called modic changes type 1. It was causing the marrow in my back vertebrae to erode the surrounding bone matter. It causes 24-hour pain. I describe it as having a curling wand, a hair curling wand, set to high, permanently implanted like a fire in my lower back. On good days, I'm simply in pain. On rougher days, I need a cane and now even a walker. On the worst days, bodily functions cease to cooperate and I'm confined to a bed. This diagnosis, coupled with my empty nest syndrome, is ultimately what led me to make the decision to start over. As intelligent, social justice-seeking humans, we here all understand how much words matter. And if you've been on Twitter for 5 minutes since the election of 2016, you really understand how much words matter. All my life, I've had a negative voice in my head that I suspect is no different than many of you. And the words that voice said to me day after day had defined me for over 4 decades. After that trip to Maine, I desperately began to look for positive words to push away my constant negative companion. Being a practical girl, I found that if I surrounded myself with visual representations of quotes, you know the little ones that you see on pieces of wood that you can buy at a store? Those. The little physical reminders are ultimately what helped me to start over. For whatever reason, my brain wasn't strong enough to shut down the negative voice on its own. But when I see inspiring words written down, that's what I end up saying to myself. So by using the non-dominant right hemisphere of my brain, which is stronger in visual information, I was able to feed my left hemisphere much-needed positive language. It's not a perfect plan, but it sure beats the constant negative stream of disheartening and often paralyzing comments that I make to myself on a regular basis. Scientists have proposed many reasons as to why whales breach, but having seen the phenomenon firsthand, it seemed to me that they were experiencing exuberance and joy. I had hung that whale photo next to my couch, where frankly I was spending more and more time. And after much reflection on that joyful beast, I realized that what gave me my deepest joy was playing piano with others, accompanying choirs, solo singers, instrumentalists. It's the singular place I get mentally, emotionally, and physically lost in complete, joyful focus. And even though the pain is still there, it moves to a different compartment in my head. If you have chronic pain, you know full well that even though the cause is physical, living with it becomes a mental game. Making music with others gives me relief in a way that prescription medication is not capable of doing. So in the words of my friend Lisa Lackey, I got a wild hair, and I decided to audition for a master's degree program in a very niche field called collaborative piano, which focuses not only on coaching singers in healthy vocal presentation, but in French, German, Italian, English, and other operatic languages, while accompanying them in dozens of different classical styles. I prepared for months, and when the audition was finally over, I was accepted on the spot. With my husband's blessing and the support of my family and friends, I headed off to a music conservatory in Princeton, New Jersey in the fall of 2016. Now remember that my son had gone off to college. Well, he was also at Princeton, starting his junior year there. He was initially more than mortified when I showed up. The look of horror on his face when he found out that not only did I have classes with some of his friends, but that they thought that I was pretty awesome, is one that I will never forget. Once he realized that I wasn't there to check up on him, he would show up at my door occasionally, usually for food or money, but sometimes just to simply hang out. So it turns out that going back to college nowadays is not just knowing how to Google things. So as with anything that I've tried to accomplish, if it starts out with, "What am I thinking?" it usually turns out to be pretty fun. The back pain was my constant companion, and I often had to use a cane and rely on the help of other students to get to my classes. And there were many, many times I cried myself to sleep. But fortunately, I had placed dozens of those little woodward decorations around my apartment. And they were always there, staring at me with their positive words and happy colors. So I thought I'd share with you 5 of the phrases that gave me the most strength and the best opportunity to drown out the mental negativity. The first one was, "She believed she could, so she did." Right before I left for New Jersey, my dear friend Lisa, who has a birthday today, gave me a long piece of wood that said, "She believed she could, so she did," on it. Its home became front and center in my apartment, and it kept me going day after day. I read it thousands upon thousands of times, and it was my cornerstone. Another dear friend, Elsa Lafferty, gave me the second phrase that inspired me regularly. It read simply, "Dream." I put it in my bedroom to remind me that dreams can turn into goals. It was the first thing I saw in the morning and the last thing I saw at night. The third was, "Life begins at the end of your comfort zone," which I just saw back in John's room also. If you're anything like me, you love your comfort zone. But if you don't stretch your limits, your boundaries won't grow. Starting over involves doing things that scare you. If you're not scared, you're not really living. Because the fact is, if it doesn't change you, if it doesn't challenge you, it won't change you. The fourth was hard. Spend more time alone. If you want to get better at something, you must work hard by yourself. Focus. Be quiet. Let success be the noise. People with purpose, goals, and vision have less time for drama. The temptation at college to hang out with fun people is strong, and trust me, if a college student texts you at midnight, they're looking for more than a study partner. If they text you at 3 a.m., you were their last choice. So spend more time alone. The last one was a quote by former Princeton resident Albert Einstein, a person who never made a mistake, never tried anything new. You will make mistakes, but discomfort is the price of admission to a meaningful life. You may have to get up every morning and tell yourself, I can do this, even though every bone in your body will be screaming, let me go back to bed. If you're not prepared to be wrong, you'll never create anything new. And I can tell you that failure does not get easier, but at least for me, I'm no longer in fear of it. If I mess up, I will bow, straighten my tiara, and keep on walking. The only person that I have to beat is the person that I was last week. So this past May, I graduated in the presence of friends and family in the beautiful Princeton University Chapel. But prior to that, I had taken another solo trip, this time, oh, there's the whale, to Flagstaff, Arizona, to assess what I would do after I returned to Charlotte. The shot that you saw previously was taken on that trip in what's essentially a skinny crack in the ground called a slot canyon. I don't yet know what that picture means to me, but like the whale, I know it will reveal its purpose to me in time. If you're contemplating beginning a new part of your life, I urge you to find a way to make it happen. The biggest mistake we make in life is waiting. Waiting until you're ready, or until someone else thinks you're ready, or until you have more experience, or until your health improves. As the saying goes, it's better to be at the bottom of a ladder you want to climb than to be in the middle of one you don't. There's only one way out of this for all of us, and the holes dug for us in the ground are always going to be waiting. So don't you wait. If you're scared, tell yourself a different story, because you become what you say to yourself. Words matter. Even if the last 2 years were my worst mistake, I'd have made it over and over again. I'm grateful for that struggle, because without it, I wouldn't have found my strength. They say that the greatest prison people live in is the fear of what other people think. But I don't believe that, because if you're anything like me, your greatest prison is living paralyzed by what you think about yourself. I found a way to manage the negative voice. It's still in there, but I survived because the fire of committing to growth and change burned brighter than the fire burning in my back. The secret to starting over is getting started. I promise you, the only reason you'll look back is to see how far you've come. Find what lights your fire, and then start over.
My reading this morning is from a nursing journal article written by Jean Watson. Caring and peace are related. All we need to do is look at faces across the globe. Somewhere along the way, society has detoured from moral social action informed by deep spiritual values that address our shared humanity and human disparities, poverty, and suffering. The values that are evident in nursing's history of compassionate human service and reform. We literally and metaphorically hold others' lives in our hands and are the source for sustaining our own and others' humanity. In our midst, this kind of action takes place on a daily basis, sometimes quietly behind the scenes, creating sacred spaces to listen, to hold another person's story. A caring science model is based on a deeply relational worldview that includes human-to-human relationships as well as human-to-environment relationships. This caring science seeks to honor the depth, humility, connection, compassion, responsibility, and concern for human welfare and optimal human development. It is a model that honors the paradox of differences and similarities that unite rather than separate our existence and experiences. So about 10 years ago this month, I was at a baby shower. We were celebrating some friends who were about to become parents. Somehow, I ended up talking with one of the grandmothers-to-be. I don't remember how this conversation began, but I found her telling me about one of her daughters who had just returned to college and had started a new career in nursing. She went on to say that she herself had been a nurse for more than 30 years. Now, this woman could tell a story, and she went on and on and on in great detail about how unimaginably hard nursing is, but she spent just as much time describing her love for her profession and how deeply grateful she was for the opportunity to enjoy such a long, rewarding career. I was captivated, but in the way you hear about a fairy tale with a happy ending. I was jealous of her daughter's ability, willingness, and success in finding a second career that she loved. I could not even consider how one might actually go about making such a dramatic change. It truly seemed impossible to me, a mere fantasy. It was a fun and delightful conversation, and one that was almost immediately forgotten. You see, at that time I was unemployed after having been laid off earlier that year. I had been working in computer software development, and it was a job that had provided well for me and my family for many years. In the height of the recession, finding a new job felt like an enormous challenge, let alone finding a new career. I had spent some time thinking about what I might like to do if I were to try my hand at something different, but I still had no answer to the question, what do you want to be when you grow up? I was feeling pretty lost and experiencing an enormous amount of pressure to help support my family. A year and a couple of part-time jobs later, we were making a 600-mile move to Charlotte, and I was looking into nursing schools in the area. The truth is that although I had always had something of an interest in healthcare, I had never considered pursuing nursing simply because I didn't think I was smart enough. While I had always been a good student in school, science was my worst subject, and I had avoided it as much as humanly possible. Yet here I was, preparing to take microbiology and human anatomy and physiology. It was the first time in my life I had thought about doing something where success was far from certain. In fact, I thought failure was a pretty good possibility. It was terrifying, and yet at the same time, part of me knew that I had to try. I had no idea what I was getting into. Nursing school is ridiculously hard in ways that are impossible to explain. It doesn't matter what else you've studied or how much you know about other subjects, the human body is astoundingly complex and mysterious. Self-doubt is a daily practice as you plod your way through classes, and the odds of survival seem slim. Yet many of us do survive and find ourselves signing RN after our names. Some of us are lucky to find jobs, and despite everything we learn in school, that's when the real learning actually begins. It turns out that the most challenging part of nursing is often not related at all to the physical sciences that we've studied. At the heart of nursing are the principles of caring and the idea specifically of caring for a whole person, not just treating illnesses. Healing is a process involving the mind, the body, and the spirit. So at the hospital where I work, we base our practice on the work of nursing theorist Dr. Jean Watson. She developed a very complex and extensive model of caring science that guides all of our interactions with our patients. This model includes core principles of practicing loving kindness, being authentically present, developing trusting relationships, creating holistic healing environments, cultivating spiritual practices, intentional caring consciousness in all aspects of even the most basic human care, and being open to miracles. You know, trivial stuff. So after practicing nursing for more than 5 years, I finally have some level of confidence in the knowledge and skills that I have acquired. I'm often a preceptor for new nurses, and I enjoy passing on some of what I have learned. But the truth is that every time I meet a new patient, while I may know something about their medical diagnosis, I have yet to learn their story. Caring for that patient requires me to walk into that room with an open mind and an open heart and the willingness to allow them to teach me who they are and what matters to them. To meet people every day with vastly different experiences and perspectives than my own and be allowed a small role in their journey toward healing, whatever that might look like, is a privilege, and it is humbling. It's true that I started over in dramatic fashion almost 10 years ago with the unending support of my amazing husband and kids. Of all the blessings I have received along the way, none is more special than the daily opportunity to form real connections with people I have never met. This painfully shy introvert has come a long way from sitting alone in an office answering endless tech support calls. But we all start over in small ways all the time, every day. And every time we interact with someone and allow them to fill our cups, we are creating courageous connections and inviting transformation into our lives. May we approach each other and those we meet with empty cups, and may we remember to allow space for miracles. I'd like to call your attention to the announcements in the back of your order of service. Next Sunday, September 9th, we will return to 2 morning services, the first at 9:15 and the second at 11:15. If you sing and are looking for a choir experience and musical community, you're invited to the first fall rehearsal of the adult choir this Wednesday evening at 7 p.m. here in the sanctuary. There will be an important training session for our Sunday morning volunteers next Sunday, September 9th, following the second service. More information is available for these and additional events in the order of service and on our Currents webpage, accessed through our website. In a congregation our size, we have many joys and concerns. We hold in our hearts and prayers Simone, Dick, and Suzanne Lake as Simone is hospitalized. We celebrate with Anne Forcinito as she welcomes her new granddaughter, Sophia Marie, born on August 28th. Catherine Covington East as she welcomes her new grandson, Henry Lee, born on August 14th. During the offering, music, and passing of the baskets, everyone is invited to light a candle to mark a celebration, concern, or remembrance.
We invite you now to a time of meditation and aspiration. May all living beings have occasion for happiness. May all have an opportunity to dispel the injustice that may linger in their lives. May all be afforded a chance to dwell in a safe home where they might enjoy freedom from hatred, greed, and confusion. May all quickly find the wisdom and compassion in this new day, in this very moment, that can lead them to freedom. May all enjoy the peace available in each and every starting over. May it be so.
We are a generous people. Our gifts sustain the vision of this church, which is special to so many of us, as it was to so many who came before, and as it will be for those we will never know. For the gifts that we give and the gifts that we are grateful. Let us give and receive the morning offering in gratitude. I invite you to rise in body or spirit and join me in an affirmation of our faith. Challenged by our liberating faith, we discover the deeper spiritual meaning, nurture loving community, cultivate courageous connections, and partner in the work of justice. My friends, there is a power that works through human hands. It is a creative, sustaining, and transforming power, and we can trust that power with our lives. It will sustain us whenever we take a stand on the side of love, whenever we take a stand for peace and justice, whenever we take a risk. Trust in that power. We are, together, held by that power. Please be seated for the closing music.